Whoa! Forgot to make the beginning to this video. As you can tell, the bed of this pickup is now gone and the engine officially gets pulled out. Alright, as you can plainly tell, if you watched my last video, I'm in the process of taking apart the basically the bed of this supposed pickup, which is pretty much just a pile of metal and rust. The bed liner is here. I pulled that out. It wasn't too complicated. It just had a bunch of screws that were at that end that were holding it in place, and it slid out. I cleaned up as much of this as I could. This basically is leaves and any kind of small stuff that I couldn't pick up or didn't see. The tailgate is here. Basically one corner was rusted and basically popped off. One latch was loose, so I managed to get that off. The other was seized, so basically I just pried on it like crazy, and since that side was out, I literally just lifted the door up and down and moved it all around, and it managed to pop the pin out, and then I was able to get rid of the tailgate. Now the next step is basically I'm just going to try and take this whole bed out and get underneath. I actually want to create a space to try and get into the transmission. So by doing this, I'll clear this up and I'll create a wide opening, make things a lot easier. Finally got to cutting the bolts out of this thing. There's 6, basically 3 on either side. Luckily I didn't have to deal with this one here because it's pretty much rotted all around it. I tried different techniques on getting these cut out. I first tried just cutting around it like that because it's thinner metal, but I didn't realize that it's actually boxed in. There's like a beam that goes across here, so I had to scrap that. I tried just cutting the 4 corners of it, and that kind of worked. I ended up basically just cutting V's into it and then just breaking off whatever the loose pieces were. I mean, these are the heads of the bolts. They're kind of mushroomed. Obviously there's missing parts from what I cut. But it's kind of a pain to drill this because they're pretty thick. And I mean, I guess I could have drilled it, but I found that the cutting it like a V with the cutting disc or the cutting wheel, and it worked pretty good. It took less time than I think it would have if I drilled it. Either way, I guess it's just a matter of personal preference at this point. The reason why I cut them is I don't have access to underneath them. I mean, everything is just so low and just hanging out there. I mean, if the wheels were on, it would have been a lot easier. But either way, I just cut them. So now I'm going to set up the camera and maybe make a fool of myself by showing how, my muscles work. I'm actually going to try and just kind of flip this and throw it over to the side. And that'll give me access to the whole rotten frame and stuff underneath it, and hopefully give me better access to the transmission. So let's take a look. Well, here we go. Hopefully it's entertaining. Oh my goodness. Seems like I got a bolt stuck in that little corner over here. I'm gonna take a look at that. All right, I think I got it. I wiggled it, seems to come loose and separate. Let me see, try number 2. A bit precarious. Woo. Victory! Woo! Alright, let's take a look. And well, here's what's under there. So if you take a look, I mean, this thing is garbage. This is why I don't really care about anything. That's the frame right there. That should be solid steel. It's not, and it's bent. Here's a better look at where like it's completely damaged. I mean, it's cracked all the way up to here, and then here it's all missing steel. I'm gonna kind of slowly take this apart. I think that there may be a lot of spare parts that I could use on my 91 as long as the stuff is in good shape. I'm not sure why this is here. Maybe it was just for the tank. I have no idea, honestly. Maybe there was fuel in there and they didn't want it splashing around. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't just take it out. And this tank looks to be pretty good, other than just the rust deposits and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I mean, if it's nice inside, maybe I'll keep it. Although I highly doubt it, considering I'm looking at everything else. Oh, well. Never mind. That's a hole right there. I'm kind of surprised. This differential is a little bit smaller than I was expecting. I thought it would be a bit bigger, especially for like the gearing and the fact that this is 4-wheel drive. But anyway, let me start cutting and getting in here and getting rid of stuff. So this is where I'm at now. Basically pretty much chopped up as much as I could. I was originally just trying to get some stuff out in the middle first, like the tanks and stuff like that, but then I ended up finding out there's too many things in the way. So I just started cutting at the back here and basically just moved my way forward. But the bumper is apart. I cut pretty much where the shackles are for the suspension or the leaf springs, and then just cut the stuff in the middle, and then got all the way up to about here. And again, just left the steel that's on the shackles. I am actually just going to cut it a little bit further to make this kind of flush with the body, because knowing myself, I'm going to smack into that about 100 times before I do anything, and you know, swear from here to nowhere. I also went and kind of cut / broke the drive shaft. I mean, it's bent, that's it right there, just to kind of remove it so that way it's not this flailing piece. I did keep the wire harness intact. I figure maybe I could use it, maybe I can't, I don't know, but at least if it's intact, there's some possibility to use it. I don't know how much of this I can actually keep and save. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll just keep it as one thing and then sell it. I don't plan on using the 4-wheel drive system off of this on my 91. I like to keep my 91 as simple as possible, but who knows? I don't really know what's going to happen. Gas tanks are just right over here. I mean, simple. I just put them away. The lines actually still had fuel in them. It goes to show you how they were still, you know, somewhat holding pressure or whatever, that it kept the fuel. I did have to watch out a little bit when I was cutting in this general area. Let me go ahead and clean all this stuff up, get it out of the way, and then let's take a look at the transmission after. All right, everything is cleaned up and pushed out of the way. It's looking a lot better than it was before. Definitely gives me way more access, and I like where it's at right now. So this is where we are with the transmission. So obviously, because it's 4-wheel drive, it has this transfer case, that's the word I was looking for, which basically extends everything further back. There's the cross member for the transmission. Now, I think what I'm gonna do is try and jack this side up a little bit more. And that way it'll give me better clearance here. I mean, I could probably still try and get in through here. The issue is, or the thing that I would like to do is I want to keep the transmission in there. I don't want to pull it out or have it fall down or drop or whatever. I really don't have a place to store it. So it's best that it kind of just stays under there, kind of protected from the weather, so to speak. I've already gone ahead and removed 2 bolts on the top of the transmission that it was accessible underneath the hood once I had removed all the stuff. And I think there's probably 2 more on either side. I want to start with this side here because the starter is stuck in there and I want to try and drop that. And well, basically that's really why, is just to try and get a little bit more stuff off of this side. I don't think the other side has many things. So I'm thinking if I start with what I would consider the worst, it might at least make it be easier a little bit. Anyway, let me get to supporting this and lifting this side up, kind of tilt it so that way this side gives me more space, and I'll get to taking all that stuff apart. Well, it's a bit precarious, but it is jacked up. It is pretty solid. I mean, I pushed on it just to make sure that it wasn't going to fall or anything. Now, I already took the transmission bolts out. That's the 2 that were on this side. The 2 that are on the top are already out, and the starter is also out. It's a remanufactured one. I actually don't really know if it's still good. I should try it out at some time. So now I'm just going to move on to the other side and do the exact same thing. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to drain the oil since I have really good access here. And I'm actually going to see if I can undo that motor mount from under here. I think it's possible. Actually, I think that's the way you're supposed to do it. So let me take a look at that too. All right, so that's what came out of the engine. So as you can see, it's pretty dark, but there was also some water. I think the water is from me because obviously if you watch my previous video, you know, I pretty much took the whole top end off, obviously without removing the heads and stuff like that, but that's probably why or where the water came from. Now moving on to the engine mounts. Hopefully this will show up. I don't know. Oh yeah, it's not bad. So that's the one that you want to take off, and then it leaves the main like rubber mounted part stuck on the engine, but I couldn't get that loose. So I ended up trying to get these ones out, but then this bracket that's here is actually tucked inside the frame, so I wouldn't be able to get the engine out. So I moved to the bolts that are actually connected to the block, and both of those came out, and I'll show you why. Because it looks like somebody put some anti-seize on there from before, so maybe this engine was removed or something like that. And you know, thank you to whoever did that before. Genius. Made my life a whole lot easier. There's just 2 bolts that you take off, like the one I showed you and then the one that's right here. I'm gonna actually pry it and see if that lifts up, just to see if it's actually fully disconnected, although I believe it is. But let's try that anyway. All right, I'm not looking for anything much. I'm just looking for just a small gap just to see if it lifts. So let me see if I can apply some pressure and see what it does. It's actually still pretty heavy. Hold on, let me try a different spot. Oh yeah, okay. So that's good. That's a good sign. Super happy about that. So now that I got that done, whew, I'm gonna go switch to the other side. All right, got this side jacked up. This one was a little worse than the other side. I think just because the ground is pretty uneven and it kind of tilts the other way. Anyway, I moved all this stuff and now it's kind of in its position. I already went and removed the 2 bolts that are on the transmission here. I ended up having to make this super long extension, and there's missing a piece here and that part there just for the socket, just to be able to get into the topmost one that's connected to the engine up here. So that guy that's right up there, the bolt kind of slid back and I never picked it up. It's kind of still stuck back there. I also went ahead and removed the 2 motor mount bolts right here. I had to remove the filter on this one, and this one for some reason was harder to remove than that one, but these 2 were stiffer than the other side. I think maybe they just replaced the motor mount on the other side, but I'm not sure. So let me go ahead and just double check to make sure that this side is also disconnected. If I can, I don't know. Let's see. I don't have as good of a spot on this side as I did the other side. Hold on, maybe I can do it with this here. It's further in on this side. Will this work? No. Okay, let me try and figure this out. All right, so I think this will work. And yep, it does. So that's good. Now I'm going to see if I can pull this forward a little bit and see if I can separate the transmission, make sure I got all the bolts out. Whew, that was something else. It is finally separated. That's the bell housing, and then there's the engine, and it is fully apart, like all around, so I didn't forget a bolt. What I ended up having to do was support the transmission a little bit, kind of lift it up, and then when I did that, the top actually separated a little bit, and then I just gently put it in a pry bar and kind of wiggled it in there, and it actually slid it forward. The only issue I had was right there. It's hard for me to get in there, so the camera's there more than I am. But that little plate that you see there where the hole kind of on this side there where the starter fits through, there's actually that little bolt right down there. Or maybe it's all thread. I have no idea what it is. I don't think it's supposed to be there. In any case, that little thing caused me a bit of an issue trying to separate the two pieces. I kind of bent it a little bit out of place, but it can be hammered back into place. But as you can see, it is completely separated. So I'm really, really happy. I got a lot further today than I thought I would, which is always a really, really good thing. Getting rid of this junk in the back here helped a lot, allowed me to lift this up. As you can see, it's a lot higher than it was before. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to bring it back down to a more level position. And I'm going to, on another day, pull that engine out, and then we'll take a look at that. All right, day two, back at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my tractor to help me pull the engine out of here. I have an engine hoist, but the problem is, like, I'm on grass. I don't really have anything that would make it smooth enough to roll around and be easy to work with. So I'm going to try and, hook it up with some, ratchet straps to the rescue type deal and pull that out and get it at least out and in front of the truck. I was going to use this guy, but the issue is I don't have long enough bolts to go through here, so scratch that. I was hoping to have it on there to make my life a lot easier because it's up a little higher, but I'll use these tires and kind of prop it up and then put the engine on that. And yes, as you can tell, I did remove the hood. Almost ripped my shoulder out and almost pulled my hand away from me because doing it by yourself is not a good idea. As I showed in the previous clip, it is separated, so it's just a question of kind of wiggling it out of there and sliding it forward. Hopefully it doesn't swing too much, but let's find out. Well, I'm sure some of you know what the problem is. I didn't show it in any of the previous clips, and obviously I had to reassess because it was not coming out. And if you guessed it, you guessed right when you're saying the torque converter bolts. I did not remove them. So, yeah, you can imagine my thoughts when I thought of that at a later point. So I managed to actually cut 3 of them. I tried removing them properly, but they were not coming out. They were stuck. I'll have to show you that later just because it's a bit of a tight spot. I was trying to avoid rotating the engine just because I know some junk fell into it. But anyway, I had to. I cut the bolts. I'm actually waiting for the batteries to charge so I can cut the last one. I did pull out all the spark plugs, and they're all right here. They're all Champion brand. They're all the same, which is good. Or maybe not. Actually, these 3 are different. Oh, sorry, 4 are different, and these 4 are the same. Which actually makes sense, because that is the driver's side bank, and then this is the passenger side bank. So I think they did something on the passenger side bank. But anyway, they are a bit sooty. I'm not sure if that's rich or burning oil. Either way, after 14 years, doesn't really matter. I'm not going to reuse these, that's for sure. Anyway, I'm going to cut that last bolt out, and then I'm going to try this again and see what happens. She's finally free. I think there was 4 bolts. They are now cut off. It seems like it's much looser than before. So now I'm going to go ahead and just try and lift it out. So as you can see right there, I had to cut those nuts off and bolts, I guess, if you will, too. All 4 of them. Thankfully, that was only 4. Hopefully, I didn't do too much damage on the transmission, but either way, if I was to give this or sell this to anybody, I'd tell them to rebuild it. There's no way. This thing's been sitting for 14 years. It needs a good going through. And finally, here's the engine out of the truck. This is a very good sight. Also going to show you why I could not just easily take some of these bolts out. This is completely worn out. It's also missing this part here. I mean, this stuff here is also kind of all gone. Like there's no way that I could have put a socket on some of these things. They're just real bad. It's like that on both sides. So I think what the plan is, either I'll come in with a cutting disc or a reciprocating saw. Probably a cutting disc, because I think I can probably get it in there a little bit easier. I'm not quite sure. But either way, just kind of lob off from about here down and then get those chunks out. It'll give me access to these bolts, which is what I was having an issue with before. I could not get in there while the engine was in the truck. Anyway, I'm starting to get the hangries. So I'm going to go have lunch and I'll get back to this. All right, got the headers off on both sides, so this is the passenger side. I didn't end up having to cut through the whole thing. I was able to actually just cut the heads of the bolts off, and then that's what it left me there. The passenger side was a bit harder to get off, and as you can see, I busted the casting there. Not a big deal, I don't really care. And you know, a little persuasion and stuff like that basically got this whole thing off. The passenger side, I did the same thing. I just basically cut it the same way, cut the heads off, and this one actually just popped right off. There was no major issue. While I was at it, I unbolted the flywheel, so that's completely off. And this is no longer reusable because basically when I cut the bolts off, or the nuts off, whatever you want to call it, I basically did damage to the flywheel, so that's going to throw it off balance. So bye-bye. Oh yeah, here's the plate. That's the starter bolt that was giving me an issue, and that's why it's all bent out of shape. Oh, I just realized I got a bunch of coolant leaking all over the place. All right, hopefully that's not from the cylinder, but who knows. And this tube was between the two. I think it's the PCV valve, but I'm not 100% sure. These heads are now officially loose. I took all the bolts off. Taking the exhaust manifold helped quite a bit. So let's take a look at that in there. Let me just get my tripod. All right, so I'm seeing this just like you for the first time. And honestly, not bad. I mean, there's some scoring, there's some rust. Ooh, there's some pretty bad stuff in that one. Like the scoring is pretty deep. Let's take a look at the other side. This one doesn't look as bad. Yeah, I don't see any like major scoring on these three that are visible. Let me take you in a little bit closer. You can see what I'm talking about. Here's the valves on the driver's side. Just sooty, carbon buildup, pretty much normal. Seems to have a little something stuck in there, but that's probably from me when I was working on it the last time. And here's the cylinders. I mean, this one looks pretty good. I don't see anything major. Anything that I would consider, you know, a concern, basically. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. Here's the valves on the passenger side. So I think because I had basically all the plenum and the intake manifold and all that stuff off, I think that's where the water came from here, and that's why it's rusty. I don't think that was there before. It does look kind of fresh, and there is some debris stuck on the valve, like plant matter or whatever. But again, the other three are just the same as the driver's side. And there's a cylinder that got the rust. For some reason, this side does look a little bit worse. I'll show you that cylinder in a second, but these, I don't feel anything with my nail there, so we're okay. Same with that one, looks pretty good. But this is the one that I was looking at. This one is really gouged. Yeah, like my nail is catching on that. And it looks like it's pretty much everywhere around the cylinder. There must be something wrong with the ring, or something got in here and caused an issue. So that's the inside. I'm actually, you know, pretty okay with it. I think that when I work on this engine, I will be boring it out. So those scratches will disappear, and it'll basically clean up all the 8 cylinders. I'm going to see if I can flip it over and take a look at the underside with in the oil pan, just to see what that looks like. All right, I took all the bolts out, had to use like 3 or 4 different sizes because of the rust. This oil pan I won't be reusing because it's pretty much peeling, and you can see the scaling of the rust lifting and stuff like that. Anyway, I haven't looked inside, so let's take a look now. Wow, that's a lot of sludge. Well, it's dirty and black. I guess at some level that's kind of what you would expect. I'm not sure if that's normal or not, but there's definitely a couple of dings in some spots. Now I should be able to turn it. It's not going to be the best, but hey. Let me bring you in and I'll show you kind of the little things that I was talking about. Nothing major, but something that makes me go, what? Here's the oil pan. I mean, Yeah. That's pretty crazy. Right, so as you can see, it's not crazy bad at a first glance. I mean, obviously dirty, you got the oil that pretty much doesn't look like it's been changed in a long time. But it's just these tiny little things like this here that looks like a little ding from something, but I'm not sure if that's just manufactured or something like that, because this one here is pretty flat. I also see something here. Oops, no, I just covered it up. But there was basically a little notch there. See, on both pieces there's a little notch. I'm not sure if that's normal. I don't really see anything there. I don't see anything anywhere else. Here either. I mean, so I'm gonna say for the most part this is in pretty good health other than just being dirty. I'm gonna leave it like that for now. I don't have the tool to take off the harmonic balancer, or basically I just don't want to go any further. I think I'm just gonna call that here and then put it away. I think it's supposed to rain, but I'm not sure. Either way, I'm pretty happy that I got the engine out and took a look at this. So let me seal this up and get it all put away. Well, the engine is semi back in its original place. I just popped it in there just to protect it from the rain. I threw a garbage bag over it and used some of the head bolts on there just to hold it in place. The valve covers are there just because I forgot to put them away and didn't feel like doing anything else, so I just threw them there. So that's it for the engine for now until I start working on the project that this is going into. I also went ahead and just took the torque converter out. I mean, you can't use it anyway, like I said, and there's a bit of a better close-up on this stuff. I cut all the bolts and nuts that were on there. And there's the transmission. I think what was happening is that you see that first spline, that one right there. It's on a rod that moves back and forth, and it was out a little bit. So I think it just got hung up on that. I think it would have completely come out if it wasn't for maybe that or just the angle or whatever that I was working at. But either way, undoing the torque converter bolts actually made everything a lot easier because basically the engine came out. All right, pretty happy with the result. It wasn't too bad. 90% it went pretty smooth. As you can see, the back end is completely removed. I'm happy about that. It was just pretty much a junk and dead weight stuck in there, and I just wanted to get rid of it. Just useless. I still have to pretty much cut up that whole thing right in there and take it to the scrapyard. Hopefully I get a little bit of cash. It'd be nice to get some money back. Really happy the engine is out. Had a lot of difficulty with it the last time that I worked on it, but I guess I had a bit of a better game plan this time and a little bit more time, and it came out. Again, just the torque converter was a bit of an issue, but I'm not sure exactly what the problem was. Either way, I'm not a pro, so I'm just gonna put that out there. I got the engine out and I'm happy. This means I can work on something else and not think about this one. That engine is going into another project that, well, you've seen the car already, and I'm actually going to go and make another video specifically on that and maybe have a little bit of fun with that car. So with that being said, thanks for watching and take it easy.